All right, it's Monday after the draft. Welcome to the Krug Show, 11:07 as we get things rolling. I'm only 7 minutes behind, guys. April the 28th, my good friend Sam Batesh is in the house. I am so fired up. We're going to be streaming on the regular. Sammy, let's go right here, right now. Off and running. Live stream of the day number 2, because we talked to Damon earlier. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. My good friend Anthony Catania is down there at 831-521-5264 for all your sports cards and collectible needs. And don't forget Claw Daddy Arcades right there in the top corner. You see their logo. They got 3 locations down in Southern Cal. They got spots in Fresno. They got a spot in Modesto. They got a brand new arcade coming to the Bay Area. So he's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades to find a location near you. He's all about family-friendly entertainment, and he's a big fan of the Krug Show. So thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. When you stop by, tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. All right, the Monday after the NFL draft. Lots and lots of talk. How did my team do? Did my team do well? Did my team do poorly? Sam Batesh has been a friend of mine for a long, long time. Sammy, we go back to the 90s probably.
Dude,
right?
This is Y2K, Larry. I mean, we survived Y2K, and here we are 25 years later. I mean, Larry, before you were legendary at KMBR, I knew you. Okay, before you were sort of synonymous with KMBR, I knew you. And what tremendous days we had. We're talking turn of the century together into 2000, 2001, the Gruden era, Bonds home run chase. Like there were some epic moments that we shared together in the Bay Area. The Tuck rule. I mean, there were some big moments. We won't necessarily talk about the Antoine Jameson run of the Warriors during those years, but I mean, that was some exciting times. I really cut my teeth in that. And thanks for having me today at Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam. That's the YouTube channel. Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam. You know that I do a show with a guy that we both know very well, Andrew Siciliano. We've done the podcast. We've got the YouTube page. It's been so fun jumping into this YouTube world that you have, frankly, I mean, you're no stranger to this, man. I mean, you're crushing it. And dude, you and your son is like the dream scenario. When I close my eyes and picture what my life could be 20 years from now,
right.
To picture that my 3-year-old Levi could be doing this with me side by side. Dude, Kevin is crushing it with you. And he's my second favorite Krug. Obviously, Damon. I got to give Damon Bruce my number 1 slot for sitting next to you. But Kevin is definitely number 2. Like, absolutely.
He's a really sharp kid, and he's done great things for the channel. And we're sitting today at 57,555 subs. So dude, Kev's had a lot to do with that. And hit like and subscribe over here on Sammy's channel. We'll have a link in the description as well, so you can easily get to Sam's channel and check that out. And of course, there's links in the description for all of our sponsors. And thanks to all of them for sponsoring the Krug Show. What we're going to do today is just go through the draft. We're going to hit the Niners for sure. We're going to start with the NFC. And we're just going to go in alphabetical order, write down the list and kind of talk about everybody's draft. We will definitely hit the Niners for sure, but Sammy's here and he knows the league. And so, you know, these lists are incredible. There's also the undrafted list. See if I can find an undrafted list, because those are also kind of big. If you can get an undrafted player, a lot of times, you know, those can be really, really good players.
Wait, I want to stop here. Yeah. When you say really, really good. So I did this amazing homework assignment. We're not going to get into it today, but one day you and I will. I went through every draft since 2000, Larry. This was just like a fun assignment I did to look at, all right, what happens? Like, who number one is great, but imagine if you could go to every draft now and say, would I want number one, or would I want any of the other players that were drafted? Should I take 1-1 or the field? My favorite in regards to undrafted, I had forgotten before I went back, Antonio Gates. I mean, when you talk about when you go Hall of Fame, and then I'm going back to say, okay, these Hall of Fame players, where were they drafted? And I can't find the number for Gates because he's undrafted. I mean, that's unbelievable. And he was an athlete. I mean, he was playing basketball, not football, but wow, undrafted is such a fun list. And of course, Romo, there's many others, but
yeah, I mean, and it's funny. If I were a John Lynch and I ran my own scouting department, I would find a couple scouts that I thought were extra, and I'd put those guys on the what I would call the Antonio Gates plan, which you guys, everybody else is going to go watch football. You're going to go watch basketball. You go find me somebody who's 6'5" to 6'9", 6'5" to 6'8" in that range, who's got major vertical, great hand-eye coordination, and a powerful build that they could transition to a football environment. And let's see if we can unearth an Antonio Gates, a Jordan, who was the guy, Thomas, who played for Denver, who played at Portland State. He was a basketball player. Hey,
Tony Gonzalez, of course, right?
Tony Gonzalez. The Niners last year, the Niners drafted a guy, or the Niners signed a guy after the draft named Mason Pline, right?
Yes.
I love this guy in the draft process because I stumbled on him. He played basketball at Ferris State. He transferred to Furman to go play football, and he's a 6'8" receiving tight end. But when I watched his basketball, when I typed his name into YouTube, I saw his Ferris State basketball film. He wasn't just a basketball player. He was an above the rim basketball player. He was like a Sean Marion. This guy's like, skying. And this guy's could take a quarter off the top of the backboard. I mean, this guy's got like 40-inch vert, and he's 6'8". So, and then I looked up his resume. The guy was a mechanical engineering major. So we all know how tough that is. So that means he's super smart, crazy athletic. And I'm like, this is a great prospect. Sure enough, the Niners signed him. They redshirted him this year. Never played him at all. But the Niners did not go for a tight end in this draft. And I thought one of the big winners was that kid, Mason Pline. I think they have him earmarked as a surprise guy to look for this summer, the converted 6'8" basketball playing tight end. So we'll watch for him this summer.
You go through Jimmy Graham. I mean, what an assignment if you're in a scouting department and you're trying to make a name for yourself. What a great assignment. Go find me someone who's not even known for football, and imagine. And you could be wrong 100 times. If you're right once on that, you're a hero. You're a hero if you find that guy.
We could just we could do a discussion on this and just say, okay, let's go through NBA rosters and find a tight end.
Well, the LeBron conversation was always there, right? There were so many. The LeBron tight end was always one that people had for a long time, and it's not as easy to just pluck and play there. But LeBron even said it. I could do it, but then he sees the guys get hit, and he thinks, all right, I wouldn't want to do it, but I could do
it. You wouldn't want to do it. I mean, that's the thing. There's far more people dreaming the NBA dream because of the money than they're dreaming the NFL dream. So get one of these guys that's dreaming the NBA dream, but is a bricklayer, but is strong as hell, and maybe has a football background, preferably, and go find 4 or 5 guys that you think are super intriguing, invite them to your May mini camp, and see if you find something. If you find Tony Gonzalez, a Hall of Famer, if you find an Antonio Gates, or in this case, a Mason Pline, we'll see what he does. I kind of think you're ahead of the game. I mean, look at who is for people who don't know Sammy. Sammy is, NorCal background, but also lived in LA, but also is from Philly. So you're a Philly guy.
Yeah, I was raised on Philly. Like everyone wonders, like, how are you a fan of this team? And most people, it's, where you were born. But again, I was born in LA, spent a lot of my career in the Bay Area, but my dad's from Philly. So across the board, it's Eagles and Phillies and Flyers. Like, that's what's deep in me. So Eagles for sure is in my blood.
So who is just an absolute unbelievable steal for the Eagles? It's this Jordan Mailata.
Oh God, Australia.
Jordan Mailata is a Tongan guy who he's born in Australia, I believe.
Australia,
born in Australia. The Eagles drafted him in the 2018 draft. in the 7th round, pick number 233. He went to Condell Park in New South Wales for high school. He did not go to college at all. They draft this guy. He's 6'8". He's 365 pounds. He has become one of the best offensive linemen in the league and probably is on a Hall of Fame type trajectory.
Oh, he absolutely is. And go to PFF and check out his grade every year. And when they talk about the strength of the Eagles offensive line, you hear so much about Lane Johnson, but it's Jordan and Kelsey obviously retired. But I mean, Jordan Mailata is the guy, is sort of the glue of that line. And just look at the sheer size of him. You know, it's everything is a chance. And again, we're going to do grades today. And so much of it is incomplete, you know, before we see it. But Mailata, 7th round, go find that guy that isn't even playing football and turn him into what looks like right now, certainly an all-pro, but potentially a Hall of Famer for the 2-time champ now Eagles. I mean, Mailata was a fucking steal.
I mean, absolutely. And I'm looking at his Wikipedia right now. NFL scouts evaluated Mailata as a 5.5 prospect grade, which equates to a practice squad player with a chance to make the bottom end of the NFL roster. Pre-draft scouting reports written about Mailata evaluated him as, quote, a work in progress and gave him a pro player comp to then Buffalo Bills offensive tackle Connor McDermott. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, this is an amazing find by Howie and the Eagles. And it's one of the reasons they've had a couple Super Bowl wins. But my point is just that this guy was a rugby player, but they found a rugby player and they converted him. It's the same mindset. Go find an athlete who's huge and is maybe interested in an NFL future and go after him. All right. That being said, let's get into our draft review here. Ooh. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. What did you think about what the Cardinals did? For those who don't know what the Cardinals did, they started with Walter Nolan from Ole Miss. They then went Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, in round 2. That was a steal. Jordan Birch in round 3, the defensive end from Oregon. Cody Simon, the hyperactive tackle everything linebacker for the Buckeyes, in round 4. Denzel Burke in round 5. And then at the end, I wasn't crazy about their guys, but they got Hayden Connor and Katan Crawford. Connor's a guard from Texas, Crawford a safety from Nevada. They went defense, heavy defense on the first 2 days. What did you think of the Cardinal draft haul?
So let me preface a couple of things. First of all, I do not wear glasses regularly, but Larry, considering I'm here today at Krug Show, I'm going to go glasses for this because I mean, there's a lot we got to dig into. I mean, this is like a homework assignment type show. I'm putting the goggles on for this. Cardinals, it comes down to one thing for me, but let me just throw it out there. It's a C, okay? But I want to explain a couple of things. The amount of players you get factors in to the grades that I made, okay? The sheer amount of players you get is also a part of this because I think when you're collecting players, that gives you a better chance at hitting on one of them. So 7 is obviously the number that everyone assumes you've got, you know, the 7 rounds. So that's going to play a part here. But the C comes down to it for this for me. You mentioned it late in the draft. One offensive lineman for this team felt like an opportunity to get more. I just feel like when you look at the positions the Cardinals went after, there wasn't enough addressed for a team that could and should be protecting their quarterback, who can be fragile and who does like to move out of the pocket. There should have been more there addressed on the offensive line. And most importantly, I don't understand what this team's doing at wide receiver either. I think there's more to be done. And I understand they hit last year on a wide receiver, but I still think there needs to be more. They've hit a home run at tight end. We think the wide receiver from last year is projecting and sort of the trajectory there is in the right place. But I thought that addressing wide receiver could have been done in this draft. And I think more on the offensive line. You're talking about now having a hit on a 6th rounder on the offensive line to make a difference here. And of course, there's still free agency. There's still time before the season starts. But overall, the Cardinals, there wasn't really a wow there. We all think Nolan felt safe in many ways, but so many first rounders do feel safe because we hear so much about them before the draft. Nothing jumped off the sheet for Arizona to say, wow, that's a splash. It doesn't have to be a splash to make a difference on Sunday, but didn't feel, if we're talking draft grade, this felt like a pass for me, like a satisfactory.
Yeah, you know, I don't know. I mean, I kind of like, first of all, they needed to build up their D. There's no question about that. And they this is a team that in the offseason signed Josh Sweat away from the Eagles.
Great move.
Signed Akeem Davis-Gaither away from the Bengals, got Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell up front. So they're trying to improve their defense. And then they go
21st in the league last year overall defense.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
not tremendous.
Walter Nolan's a good interior pass rusher. Birch is a big defensive end. Cody Simon's a really good linebacker. Will Johnson gives them another good corner. I mean, they've got some pretty decent corners here. Last year, they went with Max Melton out of Rutgers. This year, Will Johnson. They have Starling Thomas. They have Sean Murphy-Bunting. They now add Denzel Burks. They have Elijah Jones. So I like what Gannon's doing on the defensive side of the ball. He's a defensive guy, obviously.
Of course. He's in the Super Bowl as the D coordinator for the Eagles.
I don't give grades, but I'm not going to give him a necessarily letter grade. But I will say this: I thought their best two picks were what they did up front with Walter Nolan. I just think Walter Nolan is going to be a tremendous player. I'm not a big Jordan Birch fan. He was a 5-star guy that just played well this year. But they also got this kid, Elijah Simmons, after the draft from Tennessee.
Nice.
And this guy's massive. He's 6'1". He's 335 pounds. He's really, really a good plugger. So I like that addition as an undrafted player. I think it's a kind of a middle of the road kind of a draft for the Cardinals. Nothing great. Walter Nolan's their best player, and this Elijah Simmons could really open some eyes as a run plugger. But I don't know. The Cardinals are one of those teams that they draft good players and they don't get any better. I don't know why.
Well, 2 years in a row, Cardinals looked like at times they could have been. I mean, they very much in the playoff conversation and leading the NFC West at one point last season. And the season before that, they were sort of the little engine that could but couldn't. They were close in a lot of games and then losing them at the end. And of course, the season unraveled eventually. But the Cardinals, ever since losing that wild card game to the Rams, it just feels like just not quite there. And I just don't know that I see the draft doesn't tell me that answer is here yet.
Yeah. No, let's move to the Falcons. I would say one surprise for them would be Cody Simon, the Buckeyes linebacker. I could see him starting inside and making a lot of tackles. Let's jump to the Falcons. The Falcons had an interesting draft. They traded their number one pick next year to the Rams to move into the Rams spot at the end at 26. So the Falcons took Jalen Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. Then they came back with James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee. They took Xavier Watts, the Notre Dame safety, in the 3rd round, Billy Bowman, the Oklahoma safety, in the 4th round, and then they went offensive tackle with Jack Nelson from Wisconsin in round 7. What did you think? What did you think of what the Falcons got done?
So if we're throwing out grades, this would have been an A, except for something that definitely, if you were at school in a class, would dock you points. They essentially have 5 picks because they were hit with a penalty for tampering with Kirk Cousins. So essentially, right. So they would have had 6 players in this draft. They essentially lose an entire player because of Cousins. And it would be one thing if Cousins led them to the playoffs last season, you'd say, all right, maybe it's worth it. Considering Penix is starting by the end of the season and you missed the playoffs and Cousins clearly is not your answer anymore. And you're docked a pick for that. If I'm grading this year's draft, I had to at least take points away from you. And I'm not doing minus or plus with the grades. We're just going to stick to A, B, C, D, E, and F here. This is a B because I love something, Larry, about the draft. If you come away with not projected 2 first-round draft picks, if you come away from a draft with 2 first-round draft picks, that's worth a lot of points. The Falcons and the Giants here are getting extra credit here. They've got 2 first-round draft picks. And, of course, because we're grading it right now. Now, in the future, that could end up looking terrible if these guys don't hit. But right now, and to address it with boom, the same need, to think that you could have just revolutionized what it looks like to go after a quarterback with those 2 picks in Walker and Pierce for a team that needed to get after the quarterback more. I love that. So again, an A if you don't get docked to the draft pick and if you've got another player. And probably when you're looking at this and you're saying defense, and then a 7th rounder in the offensive tackle, Penix is going to need some help. Penix is going to need some help on this offense, right? This isn't just a Jaden Daniels. We're turning the key, and this is now the offense is revolutionized. Not quite enough help there. And again, that one other pick could have been something for Penix. So loving so much of it, but I'm going to say a B because I'm sorry, if we're stealing a player from you, that's nothing. I have to take something away there.
I like this draft a lot. It's not a volume draft, and they did trade next year's number 1, so you got to factor that in.
Of course.
But man, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. I mean, this team really struggled to get pass rush, right? I mean, they struggled to find pass rush. And they had Arnold Ebiketie. They signed Leonard Floyd. They have D'Angelo Malone, who's not bad. So they really struggled to get outside pass rush. So to get Pierce and Walker, I mean, both those guys fly. And then last year you had Luke Aroraro up front. So you still have him up front. I think the Falcons are on the come. Xavier Watts is a high percentage interceptor. I think they got two really good safeties in Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman. And then after the draft, I think this team did well. I mean, Simeon Barrow as an undrafted free agent. Simeon Barrow is going to make that team. Also, Nick Nash from San Jose State gives them another receiver who I think is pretty decent. So I like what the Falcons did. I think the Falcons are on the come, and they really are. I mean, they made a big risk for Penix, but now look at this team. You got Penix, you got Bijan, you still have Kyle Pitts at tight end.
Still waiting on Pitts to be that guy. But yes, but you're right.
But receiver wise, you have Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Jamal Agnew. You added. Now you got Nick Nash. So I think your receiving core is definitely pretty good. Their offensive line is solid. It's a solid offensive line, and then defensively, your defensive front you've redone.
You look revamped defensively. You look revamped. At this
they're
point.
Still a year away, I would say. I'd say the Falcons, Penix is a year away. They are a year away, but it's trending in the right direction. It absolutely is. And if they can get something decent for Cousins in a trade,
nice.
That would be a nice thing. And I think they probably will. I mean, they'll probably be able to move him. So I like what Atlanta did. I think Atlanta had a good draft. All right, let's move from Atlanta to who's the next NFC?
Carolina,
team?
I think. Same division. We can go
Carolina.
Panthers, right?
Let's go to Carolina. What did you think of what the Panthers did? They started with Teteroa McMillan. There was a lot of talk that the Panthers were going to trade back. In fact, there was talk that the Niners tried to trade up with Carolina, try to move from 11 to 8 so they could trade up for Mikael Williams. Carolina said, nah, you know what? We're afraid if we trade back, we're not going to get Teteroa McMillan, which is probably smart because Dallas was hot to trot on him at 12. But the Niners did not move up. They saved their picks, and Carolina went with McMillan to start their draft. What'd you think of what the Panthers did? This Dan Morgan, the former linebacker GM there.
Eight players that you got. It's a nice little haul. It's a nice little haul. It's a nice grab that you got with 8 players. This is a B draft for me. This is very excited about a lot going on for Carolina. And of course, again, remember Bryce Young benched last season and then comes back and has a great finish to the season. So we're starting to feel like Bryce Young could get it. But I want to talk defensively first about this. The day 2 defensive line double play is a great strategy for a team that is the worst defense in football from a season ago with the 4th fewest sacks. So it feels like, again, much like Atlanta went after a significant need, Carolina says, all right, this is where we can get ready in this draft. And day 2, they address that. And Tate McMillan is a player, now talking to offense with Bryce Young, that's a player that many people thought outside of Travis Hunter that he's obviously Travis is getting all the conversation about wide receiver. And of course he plays both sides of the ball, but that the true wide receiver position goes to McMillan in this spot. And they've got that guy. So perhaps this is the combination that they needed. And I'll give them another credit. Maybe the greatest first name in the draft, Princely, who they pick up in the 3rd round. I mean, Princely is just a name that I think we've got to say forever. I don't know how you're going to beat that. And again, another guy that you're talking about on the defensive line that can make a difference for a team that just did not get after the quarterback in what was very much an up and down last season for that first regime, for that coaching staff. And I see now with Bryce, maybe this is the division that's there for the taking. And maybe there's something that can say Carolina's a B for me.
I didn't like Carolina's draft that much. I mean, they're really trying hard to upgrade the receiver. I mean, they have Thielen, they have Xavier Legette. They went after McMillan, and then after the draft, or later in the draft, in the 6th round, they drafted Jimmy Horn. This team brought in Hunter Renfrow. They also, after the draft, signed 3 receivers: Kobe Hudson, Jacoby George, and Moose Muhammad, the 3rd from A&M. So they're trying desperately to improve their receivers. McMillan, I'm not really sure. He seems kind of young to me. He seems really immature. But I will say this: I liked they got this linebacker from South Carolina, undrafted, Bam Martin Scott. He's a pretty good player for sure. Like that pick, and I'll tell you the pick that I liked the most for Carolina was their 4th round pick, Trevor Etienne. Trevor Etienne from Georgia. You know, his brother didn't make it with the Jaguars, but I like Trevor Etienne. I talked to some of the linebackers in the draft who really said that Etienne was what they thought one of the more underrated running backs. So to get Trevor Etienne in the 4th round, I mean, they have Chuba Hubbard and they've got Rico Dowdle and, you know, they've got Jonathan Brooks from last year in the 2nd round and they've got some other guys, but I think Etienne could wind up being the best back in Carolina. So I kind of like that pick. Overall, I don't like their draft. I would say it's kind of a mediocre draft.
That's fine. I liked getting the extra player. I also meant to say the day 3 steal there. I like the ATM pick as well. I think there's a look. These teams have a lot of room for improvement, so that's why sometimes you see it as all right. They took a swing. To me, they took a swing. I like what they did.
All right, let's go to the Bears. The Bears, you know, the Bears are interesting. Ryan Poles is the GM there. They passed on Tyler Warren for Colston Loveland. They came back in round 2 with a guy in Luther Burden III that a lot of people thought was going to be a round 1 guy. They got a swing tackle on Ozzie Trapillo. They got a big D lineman in Shamar Turner, who was a 5-star high school recruit. They got a linebacker in Ruben Hippolyte II from Maryland, who's kind of hyperactive. Zoff Frazier's a big corner, ran in the 4.3s. Luke Newman's kind of a brawling, tough guard from Michigan State, and they took Kyle Monangai from Rutgers to finish it up from pretty good running back. What did you think of the Bears draft? Did you like it?
This is a C trending to a B here, Larry. And here's why. If I take the offseason into account, if we look at Ben Johnson, obviously with the coaching change there, if we look at what they got from Joe Thuney in the trade, and then also Jonah Jackson, this is a team that addressed a pretty significant need on the offensive line. But I'm going to say if we're really talking about draft day and the draft, it feels like a C. And here's why. It's the 27th ranked defense, and you spent the first 3 picks on offense, which at first I was going to dock, and then I realized it's also the worst offense in football. So you had to, so from a year ago, you had to address that. The other thing I don't love is what you said. Loveland at tight end, and time will tell us if this works out. But considering there was this consensus about Warren being that top tight end, and you go with Loveland, we simply have to now wait and see on that, because that feels like it could very well be a swing and a miss if he doesn't hit, and you need to get that. I'm sorry. We need help for the quarterback here in Chicago. It was not pretty last season. And I think Ben Johnson's going to immediately infuse that, and also Hippolyte, who you mentioned, really projected as about a 7th rounder. So that felt like a stretch there. Hippolyte was not a guy that people expected to hear that you could see on desks across the draft coverage. It was like, okay, we're going to take a breath and get the tape on Hippolyte. We were not expecting it right here.
I thought the best pick was the Monangai pick from Rutgers. Now, I'm a big fan of his, but I mean, like Roshan Johnson, DeAndre Swift, Travis Homer, these are the other backs they have.
They don't have an answer. They don't have an answer.
I think Monangai could be a really good pick for them. And I think Luther Burden potentially could be a really good pick. I mean, now look at that receiving core. I mean, now, Caleb has no excuses. They've built up his line. They added Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson. You got pretty good young tackles. You've now added Colston Loveland, Luther Burden. You have Roma Dunze. You have DJ Moore. You have Cole Kmet. Now you got 2 tight ends because you got Loveland. You have, Kyle Monangai, Roshan Johnson, DeAndre Swift. He's got some weapons now. So they're starting to surround Caleb with some serious weaponry, and that's good. Now, I don't know. I don't love their draft because I think Loveland has got shoulder problems, and to me, it's like he could be Travis Kelce or he could be hurt a lot. So I don't know. To pass on Tyler Warren, I thought that was, I don't know if I would have done that.
And then again, I was just saying, and then again, at tight end, I mean, look at what this league. Pitts was this consensus, next Travis Kelce, and certainly for Atlanta, Tony Gonzalez type guy, and at the very least, Algie Crumpler, and he hasn't been any of those names. So it really is a wait and see between those 2 guys, Warren and Loveland. They'll be connected.
So I'm not a big fan of the Bears draft. I did like Dallas's draft. Dallas, according to reports, was going to take Teteroa McMillan, and that McMillan went to Carolina, and so they had to kind of reshuffle on the fly. They went with Tyler Booker, their reaction in their war room, you would have swore that Tyler Booker was the only guy they had on their board because they were so ecstatic to get the big road grading guard from Bama, who's one of my favorite players in the draft. So they got Booker in round 1. They came back with, I think, an awesome edge rusher in Ezaraku from Boston College in round 2. I thought they got one of the best corners in the draft in Shavon Revel. He just was coming off an ACL. They got an incredibly fast running back in Jadon Blue. He did have 9 career fumbles, but he's fast as heck. They took a linebacker in Shamar James from Florida, who's really athletic. Pick an offensive tackle and a Johnny Cornelius from Oregon. The pick that I absolutely loved for the Cowboys, though, if you said what was their best pick outside of Booker, I love the Booker pick. But the Cowboys took Jay Toyia from UCLA. And this guy in the 7th round at pick 217, I was kind of hoping Jay Toyia would fall to the Niners. He is he's not a pass rusher, but he's just an amazing run defender. And you just can't block this guy. And they tried to plug up the middle with Mozzie Smith, taking him last year in the 1st round. It didn't work out. Jay Toyia this year in the 7th round is going to be way better than Mozzie Smith. So I love that pick for the Cowboys, Jay Toyia. That to me was a phenomenal get. I didn't see any of their undrafted guys being that special. But getting the UCLA, to me, you got the best road grading guard in Tyler Booker, who's going to play right guard for the Cowboys for the next 10 years. And then you got a nose guard in Jay Toyia that absolutely is going to close off the A gap. So I liked what Dallas did. I thought Dallas did pretty good.
So I only gave out 8 A's, and this was almost one of them. It is a B, very close to an A, and maybe the fact that I'm just an Eagles guy, it's tough for me to give an A to the Cowboys, but this was a good draft. I'm with you, Larry, on this. And Booker, by the way, for a team that just needed to get back to what made them special, this team, even with Dak, even in this regime, I'm not talking 90s Cowboys, but even just the regime that felt like it was going in the right direction with Dak, that team could run the football, and the offensive line was a scary, we don't want to face them offensive line, and it has not been that the last 2 seasons. There's been injuries, retirements, etc. Yes, but to get Booker, this is a player that is going to make a difference immediately for them. And the other part of it is, Ezaraku, as you said, that's a first day guy. They really, I mean, Ezaraku, when we look back at mock drafts and whatnot, this is a name that was flying off everyone's tongue. And to have him then at the 2nd pick on the 2nd day, that's a great one. And something that bothered me all of last season, for a guy that thinks the Cowboys are going to be in contention for the NFC East every single season, which I do and think they should, what the hell were the Cowboys thinking about their run game coming into last season, Larry? Rico, what the
franchise that had Tony Dorsett and Emmitt Smith.
What Rico Dowdle, Larry, do you know that on the day the Eagles were celebrating Saquon Barkley's 2,000th yard, okay, in the second to last game before the end of the season, the Cowboys were celebrating Rico Dowdle's 1,000th yard. Saquon ran for 2,000, and on that same day, Rico Dowdle busted 1,000.
Wow.
How did the Cowboys come into the season thinking our answer at running back is Rico Dowdle? And but don't worry, the memory of Ezekiel Elliott is backing him up. What the hell? I cannot wrap my head around what the Cowboys, known for the running game the way that they are. This is a team that turned DeMarco Murray into a star, right? I mean, this is a team known for the running game and for the line. So give them credit for what they did with that first pick. And again, you mentioned Jadon Blue, but picking up 2 running backs in this draft, that is addressing something that cost you dearly. This is the 28th ranked defense, first of all, yes, but again, it was the 27th ranked rushing offense for the Cowboys. They were the 27th rushing offense in football. They took care of what they needed to. For right now, for today, we can say they took care of it. But
they just, they make so many bad personnel decisions. They trade a 4th round pick for Trey Lance. They paid Dak Prescott the money they paid him. They gave a decent pick to the Patriots for Joe Milton. Why? So he can have a backup quarterback. Right. But they did add Javonte Williams from Denver and Jadon Blue and Miles Sanders, and we'll see if they can run it. But not a great. I mean, I thought it was a good draft for Dallas, but I don't think they're in a great spot. The team that has had great drafts and had the last few years, I thought came back to earth, and that was the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I'm with
The
you.
Detroit Lions have been drafting really high, and every time you look up a Jahmyr Gibbs or this guy or that guy, I mean, everybody's like a 5-star, Laporta. I mean, they've just done nothing but blue chip drafting great players. They didn't draft great players this time. I thought Isaac Tesla, the Arkansas slot receiver, is kind of an interesting get. Tate Ratledge gives them a decent guard. I guess they did a little for their Tyleek Williams, a little bit of a run defender to replace DJ Reader in the middle. But they didn't get. This is not like their drafts of the past 4 or 5 years. Brad Holmes is a great GM. I like Dan Jackson, the Georgia safety, late. I'm not like Miles Frazier a little bit late. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Lions picks this year. They lost both coordinators. Maybe that had something to do with it, but I don't see a lot of there. I mean, Ratledge is a decent guard. Tesla's a decent receiver. Frazier's a decent backup offensive lineman. Tyleek Williams is a great run defender, but he's not much of a pass rusher. I think the Lions, got a little bit out of this, but nothing close to what they've been getting in recent years.
Exactly. And Larry, I went to UC Santa Cruz. That's what got me to the Bay Area in the first place. And there was a lot of pass fail in my first year. That was how they gave out grades, pass and fail. Lions passed the class. I'll give them 7 picks across the board that I would say felt okay, not safe, but not amazing. A lot of what they did felt safe, but not amazing. And you mentioned the number one thing we have to say all offseason about the Lions. They lost not one coordinator, but both coordinators. Ask the Eagles coming off the Super Bowl from 2 seasons ago what it's like to lose both coordinators and try to come back. And the Lions have been in the conversation in the NFC at the top of the NFC. But losing both coordinators is going to be difficult. And this draft didn't do enough to appease the loss of that. The best story in their draft is the kid from Egypt, Hassanin, who they got in the 6th round. That is an amazing story out of Boise State. That's the one that's going to be the most fun to follow. I agree. Tyleek in the 1st round feels safe. And for a team that lost Aiden Hutchinson, okay, it feels like, all right, we don't want to deal with what that feels like again from the defensive front standpoint. And so we really got to address that. And we did. And this is a team that was ravaged by injury, and it came back to bite them in that divisional game against Washington. So I liked it. I think the Lions get a lot of credit for the success they've had over the last few years, and a lot of people like the draft because of that. I didn't think so. It was not a wow. It was a pass.
I mean, they're battling in this division with Green Bay, and I thought Green Bay had a great draft. So let's talk about
look at Minnesota last season. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, go to Green Bay.
Green Bay adds Matthew Golden.
Oh, love that one.
Savion Williams. And then they added Anthony Belton and John Williams to their offensive line. I thought those were really good. They also got a really underrated running back in Jalen White from Georgia Southern as an undrafted guy. So that looked good. Then you flip over to the defensive side of the ball. Baron Sorrell and Warren Brinson give them a couple of good defensive linemen up front. They also got Nazir Stackhouse after the draft from Georgia, who I think is going to make their team. So overall, I would say it wasn't like the greatest draft of all time, but I kind of think Green Bay in this battle between themselves and Detroit took a big step forward. I kind of like what Green Bay did. I mean, they gave themselves, they like their receivers, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Christian Watson, but Bo Melton. But they really felt like they needed a number 1 receiver, and they added a fast receiver in Golden and a big physical receiver in Savion Williams. I don't know if they have that number 1, but I think Belton is a great offensive tackle. I think the 2 defensive, the D tackle and the DN they added are pretty solid. So, let's say you add Warren Brinson, Baron Sorrell, and Nazir Stackhouse to your defensive line. That's pretty good depth. So I kind of like what the Packers did overall with the big additions coming on the perimeter with Golden and Savion. They added, the fastest receiver and the most physical receiver. So I think if you're Jordan Love, I think you got to look up and be like, man, you gave me 2 brand new receivers and a really good offensive lineman in Belton. I think this was it's a good day for Jordan Love.
And somewhere Aaron Rodgers is saying, what the F?
Yeah.
You took you got a 1st round receiver now? First time since 2002, Larry. And they get Matthew Golden, who a lot of people like that story with him maybe going to Dallas, because he's a Texas guy, but to get Matthew Golden, you're absolutely right about Jordan Love saying, wow, thank you. Thank you for this draft. And what happened, think about how their season ended yes, it was against the Eagles, but not just that game in the wild card, but losing wide receivers was the story of the season. I mean, that was it. They were not healthy at wide receiver. That's it. That's the story. So addressing a need, this is a B for me. And when the story came out first about Cooper Kupp and the Rams, that he wasn't coming back and he was, traded, and everyone did the right thing and said the right thing about Cooper Kupp. But I thought immediately, Green Bay, go get Kupp. Go get Kupp. Green Bay, go get Kupp. Go get Kupp. And look, that didn't happen. But in this draft, they took a look at that and said, we need to do it. And to do that in the first round with Golden, Savion in the third round, that is really just so smart. Wide receiver injuries just crushed the Packers last season. And I love that. But somewhere Aaron Rodgers is wondering, you fucking waited 20 years.
I know. Seriously, he's pissed. He's pissed.
So that's a B for me. I like what they did overall.
The Rams are interesting. I'm a big Les Snead fan. Yes. I just think Les Snead's a really good personnel guy. They traded their pick to the Falcons, so they got another number 1 pick. So you got to remember that. This is a team that is going to be looking for their quarterback in the future, and they know it. So they made sure they have 2 number 1s next year. So they kind of set themselves up in like a 2-step situation for next year. As far as what they got on offense, Jarquez Hunter and Terrence Ferguson, I think should really help. Jarquez Hunter, I think, is going to be a really good trio of backs between Blake Corum, Kyron Williams, and him. I really like that addition. I really loved Willie Lampkin, the undrafted free agent guard from North Carolina. I thought that was an incredible get. I thought that was one of their best gets. On defense, they got Chris Paul Jr., Josiah Stewart, Ty Hamilton. Not bad up front. They also added Sean Dolak, who was the nation's leading tackler from Buffalo, as an undrafted guy. I would say the Rams did pretty well considering they got, I think 3 guys for their defensive front 7 and, probably 3 weapons in Jarquez, Terrence Ferguson, and Kanata Mumfield from Pitt. So and they got a good offensive lineman in Lampkin. I like what the Rams did. It's deferred gratification because they traded away a high pick for a next year number 1, but they set themselves up for the quarterback in the future. They added a couple weapons on offense, and they added to their defensive line. I think the Rams had a very positive draft.
If I've got to grade it for this season, I'm giving it a C, though, because trading away the pick for next is exciting for next year. It's not exciting for this year. And for a team, I had friends that were actually at the draft party for the Rams. They were there at the War Room here. It was not far from my house, actually. And everyone was excited. And then they are Thursday night, and no draft pick. Everyone's there for Thursday night and nothing happens at all. And Larry, think about this. The story of the Rams and Les Snead, of course, was building all of this without first rounders. Remember, this is the team that is known for, we don't need first rounders, right? We are going to trade and get other players. We don't need first rounders. And then last year, the defensive rookie of the year is their first round draft pick. So you're thinking, all right, here's the momentum. This is exciting. What are we going to do with this year's first round draft pick to build off what we did with last year's first round draft pick? And nothing. And not only that, if I'm going to give credit to the Giants, which I will here in a little bit, I'm going to dock the Rams a little bit also. The Rams, the story was they were excited about Jackson Dart. The Rams wanted Dart as the Matthew Stafford replacement. And instead, the Giants jump back into the first round and trump the Rams and get Dart. And that is why the Rams said, all right, we don't need a first rounder now. Let's get value because we no longer need it. The Giants got our guy. And that's it. We're done. So if I'm giving credit there, I'm going to take a little bit away. You only got 6 players to think of and to speak of for this season. I do like the tight end. It was a position in need to get in the second round, but we're dealing with this right now and not for the future. So right now, I'm going to give that a C.
Minnesota's draft, I did not like. They got Donovan Jackson for left guard, and he'll start right away on that line. And they got Ty Felton, a nice receiver, to go with Jefferson and Addison. I think that they also added Rondale Moore. They have Jalen Naylor. So they've got some decent receivers, and getting Ty Felton was not bad. And they traded for Sam Howell to back up J.J. McCarthy. So, not bad. They added Max Brosmer. They also added Ben Urasek from Stanford and Logan Brown after the draft. Urasek a tight end, Logan Brown a tackle. But didn't love what they did. I didn't think they added much on defense. Tyler Batty from BYU is not bad. They drafted the guy who wasn't very good for Georgia, but then looked great at the combine. So that to me is never good. When you fall in love with guys who go big at the combine, that always is bad. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, it took him the 5th round because he had a good combine, but he's not a good player, at least not according to his college film. So to me, the Vikings did not get a lot. I thought the Vikings, you're going back to J.J. McCarthy, and now you got Sam Howell. But, when you look at the rest of their division, I mean, that's not Donovan Jackson, Ty Felton, Sam Howell, Kobe King. That's not a great draft.
This team got destroyed at the end of the season, offensive line wise. Darnold was under siege in that wild card game against the Rams. Absolutely. And again, they came away with five drafted players. And that's just, I'm sorry, this is a D. You got 5 dudes. This is a D, especially considering Darnold is gone. And Darnold was no matter what you think about how the season ended, Darnold was the story of last season for Minnesota. And you're now going with what? JJ McCarthy was great in one game, half of a preseason game? I mean, JJ McCarthy, we all think is going to be the guy, but it's not like we're just plugging in JJ McCarthy to 14 wins. We cannot do that. And Sam Howell doesn't help me get to that number either. So the draft was going to have to be pretty special to change my mind. And again, you've got arguably the best receiving duo in football in Addison and Justin Jefferson. And with the second pick that you've got here in the 3rd round, you're going Ty Felton, wide receiver. There were just not enough answers. If we're plugging the holes with what happened at the draft and considering Sam Darnold's gone, don't love it. Just don't love. Minnesota was trending in one direction, and the draft doesn't help me see it going in that direction anymore. No,
I didn't like it. I didn't like what the Saints did either. I mean, the Saints have an injury with Derek Carr. They went with Tyler Shuck. Shuck's got a big arm, but he spent 7 years in college. Devin Neal's not a bad running back. They got him. Marcus Yarns, they got after the draft at running back. They got Kelvin Banks, a big left tackle. So that should help their line of scrimmage a little bit. And then on defense, the Saints added, Quincy Riley, Jonas Sanker on the back end, Danny Stutzman at linebacker, Fadil Diggs, Vernon Broughton on the line. I don't love. I mean, I guess maybe my favorite pick would be Quincy Riley.
Yeah.
Don't really love their picks. Don't love the quarterback they went with, and Kelvin Banks, the scout, this quote that I saw in Kelvin Banks was he loses slowly. So that's not good. And then Shuck, I'm not a believer in. Neal's not bad, but you already have Alvin Kamara there. I don't know. I think the Saints had just an okay draft. Stutzman, Broughton, Fadil Diggs. I know there are people that really like those guys. I'm not one of them. So don't love it. Don't love what they got done on this day. I would say my favorite pick would be Quincy Riley on defense and probably Marcus Yarns on offense as an undrafted guy. So I don't like the Saints draft at all.
I'm with you again. This is a pass. This is a C here. And speaking of Riley, who you like so much, I thought, considering the loss of Lattimore, that maybe before the 4th round, this would have been addressed. And Riley can end up proving us all wrong and being the answer. But in regards to Lattimore, the trade to Washington and now needing something there, I'm just not sure that Riley is. I mean, the player will have to prove it. The draft pick and where he was selected doesn't necessarily tell me that's going to happen. And again, in regards to getting Shuck, and of course, so much was about Shedeur at 9. And that probably looks now like brilliant not to be in that spot. But if you got Shuck and you got Rattler, who you're kind of thinking you might have something with, it's almost like the Carr money now makes no sense. That's what hurts this draft more than anything is really this team looks as if they put themselves together without Carr, and yet you're now you're committed dollars-wise to Carr for what seems like no reason. It feels like you're trying to build a quarterback answer elsewhere, but you've got all the money to Carr. I don't love it. And to your point about Kamara, yeah, you can say the name Kamara, and those that play fantasy football like to just slot it in like Kamara is going to be this guy. That's going to run out. I could be proven wrong. Kamara could have another outstanding season, but I just feel like one of these days that's not going to be there. And I just don't know that Neal is necessarily going to be that Kamara answer. And this is a good running back draft. And I was wanting something to go sooner there from a running back standpoint for New Orleans. So yeah, that's a C.
Let's go to Joe Shane and the New York Giants. You know, they're talk about a regime that's under pressure. I mean, these guys made some bad decisions last year on camera. And really it couldn't have gone last year, could not have gone any worse for them.
No.
Outside of drafting Malik Neighbors, who was a nightmare year for the G-men. They need a big offseason here. Now, they did have a big offseason. They signed Russell Wilson. They signed Jameis Winston. They signed some receivers on the defensive side. They brought in Jeremiah Ledbetter and Paulson Adebo, Javon Holland in the secondary, some pretty good players there. They drafted Abdul Carter, with the third pick in the draft, and they got Darius Alexander from Toledo in the third round. I think he's a really good player. And then Marcus Mbow from Purdue, a guard in the fifth round. They got Jackson Dart. They got Cam Scattaboo, Fadone, the tight end from Nebraska. They also got Daquan Felton after the draft, who's a big receiver who runs fast. So interesting draft for the Giants. I would say you'd have to give them a solid B or B plus. I mean, I'm not a grade giver, but I think, you gotta give them a pretty good grade. They got Abdul Carter. They got another defensive lineman. They added a quarterback that they like. They got in New York, as Cam Scattaboo, I think is probably going to be a nice pick there. You added a tight end, an offensive lineman. Daquan Felton after the draft's not bad. He's big and fast. I like what the Giants did. I mean, the Giants were looking at Shedeur. People were talking about they should draft Shedeur. You got to be kidding me. And they wind up with the best player in the draft and Abdul Carter, and a quarterback that might wind up being the best quarterback in the draft, and Scattaboo and Darius Alexander. I like Giants had a lot of draft capital. They had a lot of needs, but I like what they did.
I'm wearing the glasses, so I'm happy to be the professor here on this one. And this is, I believe, the first A that we've heard here. There aren't many, but this is an A for the Giants. 7 players. And again, I told you, I'm giving extra credit. If you're coming away with 2 first-rounders, if you're aggressive and you're going back to the first round, and I already mentioned you sort of out-dueled Les Snead and the Rams to get Jackson Dart after getting Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter could be the next Lawrence Taylor, even though LT doesn't want to give up his number for the kid. But Abdul Carter, we feel like, is a home run. That felt not just safe, but a home run. Do the right thing. Get Abdul Carter. You said it, to watch what happened on Hard Knocks with this team as far as offseason for the Giants. This had to be a good one. They brought everybody back in Shane and Dable. This had to be right. As far as today goes, the Monday after the draft, this looks like an A. And we already talked about your son, Larry, and he is smarter than my son, who's only 3 at this point. But my son says one name walking around the house, and it's Scattaboo. He is somehow, ever since that day when Scattaboo played the game that he did on New Year's Day against Texas, that name has been rolling around my house as the most exciting and electrifying player for one game, one moment. Scattaboo. Genty had many, but Scattaboo in one game to be throwing a touchdown pass, catching a touchdown pass, running a touchdown pass, and 2-point conversions to come back from 24-8 to tie that game that they very much should have won against Texas. That Cam Scattaboo is such an exciting and electric player. You can't slot anyone in to replace Saquon Barkley in an instant. But for right now, if we want to go with the excitement of it, you're talking about plugging holes, defensive line, quarterback, running back. Like, I'm sorry, those are exciting. I love the Scattaboo thing on top of it all. That is an A. That is just that's an A, period, and point blank.
I'm not giving them an A. I mean, I wouldn't, I'm not giving grades, but I wouldn't give them an A because to me, A means that they were the best. And to me,
okay,
I thought the Eagles were the best. I mean, so Howie Roseman annoys me. He's so good at what he does. He annoys me at this point. But they just keep on going. They just keep on going. I mean, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Okay. They already have a great offensive line. Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson. That's probably one of the best offensive lines going in the game right now. Even though they have a good offensive line, they drafted Trevor Keegan last year. They like him. They traded for Kenyon Green Then they drafted Miles Hinton, who I think was probably the Niners' swing tackle, the former Stanford player who finished at Michigan. Then they took Holland Pierce, a hulking kid from Rutgers, as an offensive tackle after the draft. That was a great ad. So they added, even though they already have a great offensive line, they added two really good potential offensive tackles. Then they drafted Cam Williams and Drew Kendall. So they added four offensive linemen to a really good offensive line. And then, as far as the rest of their offense, they made the right decision to promote Tanner McKee to the backup quarterback and get rid of Kenny Pickett. Then they go out and draft Kyle McCord. So now, and they traded for DTR. So now you've got Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, Kyle McCord, and DTR. That's a tremendous running back room. They also added two undrafted rookie free agent running backs that I loved, both of them. Shedeur Powell is an absolute home run hitter, return guy. Montrell Johnson played at Florida. He's really good. So that's what they added on just offense. 1, 2, 3 in McCord, 4 in DTR, 5 in Cam Williams, 6 in Drew Kendall, 7 in Miles Hinton, 8 in Holland Pierce. They added 8 offensive players. Okay. Now let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Ty Robinson from Nebraska is a monster. He reminds me of Keith Millard going way, way back. I mean, going back to the 80s. Jihad Campbell is a tremendous linebacker. I know there are people ripping him. Don't. He's really good. Andrew Makuba is a starter at free safety. Mac McWilliams, I think, is a really good get at a corner spot. And then in the 6th round, they drafted Antoine Powell-Ryland. They also got a good undrafted corner in B.J. Mays out of A&M, and they got a good undrafted safety in Maxon Hook from Toledo. So freaking Eagles are just absolutely stacked and just getting deeper and deeper and deeper and better and better and better. They get an A. That's an A.
That's great. Look, I'm seriously.
I mean, that's an unbelievable A. This is a team that also added Azeez Ojulari in free agency, Adoree Jackson, Josh Uche. I mean, they added a lot on defense, and on offense. AJ Dillon. We even mentioned him. He's Cam Latu. I don't know. He's no good, but he's a former Niner. But I'm just saying the Eagles had a phenomenal draft coming off of the Super Bowl. They get an A. They get an absolute A.
I don't want to be a homer, so I'm going to give it a B just because we're not going minus plus here. Guy. So as an Eagles guy, I just don't want to be the guy that's the Eagles guy that says A. So I'm going to say B. And if there's one knock, let's let it be this. Seconds before Shedeur Sanders is actually drafted by the Browns, story comes out, Ian Rappaport says the Eagles are now in the 5th round thinking about taking Shedeur Sanders. And with that, the Browns then trade into the slot ahead of the Eagles to take Shedeur Sanders. So remember this, for all the comparisons there will be to Shedeur Sanders, remember Mac McWilliams is the name, Larry, that we should talk about now. Mac McWilliams will be the guy. Now, that's the guy we should, right. So that's who we should tie because that was going to be Shedeur and instead becomes Mac McWilliams. So let's see who has a greater impact on the league immediately. Is it Mac McWilliams or Shedeur? Looks like Mac's going to have that better chance right now. Again, the 2nd round pick in Makuba is almost a must there with the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade to the Texans. So that felt like, again, plugging a great hole. Howie Roseman gets credit for any SEC player that he picks in the 1st or 2nd round because of the success of what we've seen out of Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Devontae Smith. So Jihad Campbell is in that mold. Let's give Howie credit right now. And yes, there's an injury situation potentially with Jihad, but you're right. People are loving that and giving a lot of credit to Howie right now for that. Ty Robinson in the 4th round. You said it, Larry. You like this guy.
Love him.
Fastest 40 time of any D lineman at the combine. That is what a great steal. People are loving that pick. You got to give credit for that, Ty Robinson. And now, if you were saying the Shedeur thing in the 5th round, now you think Kyle McCord, who a lot of people had, again, at that point, McCord, people are pretty high on McCord. That could be great. You're right about the McKee thing becoming the guy behind Hurts, but now the McCord time to develop there. So that's a nice one. But that was 10 players is a nice, you're the Super Bowl champs and you come away with 10 picks. And like you said, there's even more to add to that. That feels nice. But of the 10, 4 of them were 6-rounders. But the way the Eagles have hit late, that could very much be a hit again. And yes, right now, if as an Eagles fan, considering, look, free agency was unkind to the Niners, and we're going to get to that. It's pretty unkind to the Eagles also. When you look at the Super Bowl and you think Sweat and Becton and Williams are all gone, Kenneth Gainwell, all these names that have left the Eagles Super Bowl team, this feels good. Waking up today feels pretty good with a lot of these replacements.
Let's get to the Niners right here, since in alphabetical order, the Niners are next. Overall, I would say, I think the 49ers had a pretty good draft. But, Mikael Williams, CJ West, Alfred Collins, I think all three of those guys start on the defensive line. I think it's Bosa, CJ West, and Alfred Collins inside, Mikael Williams outside opposite Bosa. So I think you got 3 starters on your defensive front. The linebacker, Nick Martin, is a great get. I love that one. That's a tremendous get. Upton Stout, I think, is a really nice get as well. The Niners got a corner from BYU that runs in the 4.3s in Jacob Robinson as an undrafted guy they kind of like. So interesting. I still think they could have used more at linebacker. They also drafted Marquise Siegel from K-State to play free safety. So we'll see how that goes. But I like the defensive line additions and the defensive front 7 additions. I think overall, I think they hit on Upton Stout, Nick Martin, CJ West. I hope they hit on Mikael Williams and Alfred Collins. But overall, I liked kind of the defensive side. On the offensive side, the Niners didn't do a lot on the offensive side, but they did get 2 running backs in Jordan James and Corey Kiner. History tells us that Corey Kiner is going to outperform Jordan James. So we'll see. They did get Curtis Rourke, the Maple Missile from Indiana in the 7th round, who a lot of people like. I think they got a really good guard from Iowa in the 7th round in Connor Colby. And I like Jordan Watkins, the speedster they got. And the one, probably the wild card for the Niners, is they signed an undrafted free agent receiver from Nebraska who started at Wyoming and then Texas, Isaiah Nayer. And he's interesting because he's 6'5", 220. He runs a 4.4 flat 40. He's got 35-inch arms and a 40-inch vertical. So, I mean, think about that. You're 6'4", 220, and you run 4.4 flat, and then you've got 35-inch arms and a 40-inch vertical. I mean, his catch radius is like the size of Orange County. I mean, it's just a massive catch radius. So, and he was a big-time recruit once upon a time. He hasn't done it because of injuries, but that's an interesting guy to watch for, Isaiah Nayer. So I would say overall, the Niners, I would give them a lower grade. I don't know that I would give them not give them any grade, but I don't love the Jordan James pick, and I don't love the quarterback pick. And I would have liked to see them get a few more undrafted players, considering how many holes they have. It seems like other teams got more undrafted players than they did. But overall, I would say I kind of like what they did to their defensive front.
I'll hand out a B here. You don't want to hand out the grade. I'm going to give this a solid B all the way around. And of course, you got to take all this with the grain of salt that Debo's no longer there. And I know there's a lot to be said on both sides of Debo, right? Love him, hate him. And I'm sure you've had moments, Larry, and I'm sure those in the comments have plenty of moments where they've loved Debo and then are just tearing their hair out because he's not available. And for Kyle, what he does to the play calling, it's so great to have Debo there. What that does to every other offensive player and what you can do from a gadget standpoint, it's so different, the play call. They probably have an entire meeting of just, is this game, do we have Debo or not? And what that means to the playbook. And so now not having Debo is at least not that headache of wondering whether he's there or not, but he's still someone that is so unique that you've got to account for. And we don't know that that's been addressed, but I just want to say that's the grain of salt with anything that we talk about for the offseason for the Niners. You don't love the quarterback in the 7th round, but considering how Brock Purdy hit, I think we got to say, okay, we'll at least wait. The Niners may know something about late 7th round quarterbacks here. So sure. Maybe there's something there, right? Maybe. And with Williams in the 1st round, it felt somewhat obvious at the time, but then I go back and look, could you have had Mike Green or James Pierce there? Would you be happier with Pierce or Green? Again, time is going to level all of this, but in the moment, it felt like maybe more excitement with Pierce or Green at that time when Williams is taken in the first round. 11 players on draft day is a nice haul, so I'll give some credit to that. But I think there's something to be said about maybe Pierce or Green there. And of course, the Ravens, as we'll get to, are going to be given so much credit for getting Green where they did. But Williams maybe. And I don't know. I mean, look, running back, Kyle figures it out, right? Whether Jordan seems too high, they're going to find someone there. Maybe Jordan's that day 3 steal, maybe, and maybe he's not. But it just feels like when it comes to running the football, this team's going to figure it out. And it doesn't have to be Christian McCaffrey every time.
We have to pick up our pace because we got to be.
Oh yeah, you're right. Let's go. Oh my God, let's go. We're done. Pete, let's go.
We only got about 15 more minutes, but let's roll through these. Seattle, I thought, had a very good draft.
Yes.
Riley Mills, Nicky Manwari, as far as to their defense, and they added Zy Alexander, the LSU corner, and Jared Ivey, the Ole Miss defensive end, as undrafted guys. I thought those were really good additions to the defense. And then offensively, Ricky White III and Torrey Horton at the receiver spot. They already added Cooper Kupp and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And so I kind of like that. They added the tight end, Elijah Arroyo. They added a big offensive lineman in Gray Zabel, who's going to plug right in at left guard, I should say. So I would say overall, they also got Milroe and Damian Martinez from Miami. So I kind of think John Schneider plugged some real holes there. I kind of like what he did.
To be as quick as possible, I'll say the one note on this. First of all, this is an A, and here's why. Mills is a great day 3 pick, which you get by trading Sam Howell after the Milroe pick. So this will come down, of course, to whether Milroe works out at all, and he doesn't have to immediately because obviously we've solved quarterback for the moment. But I like the maneuvering there. 11 picks, and Emanwari, we know, could have been a Thursday night guy and instead goes Friday. So that's nice that you pick up a stud in the second round as well. So there you go. I'm giving them an A in Seattle.
I'm giving Jason Licht, the Tampa GM, an A in Tampa. I thought Tampa's draft was great. They get a Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. He's ready to step in and play right away. They also got Tez Johnson in the 7th round.
Love that.
That's an amazing get. They got Josh Williams, an LSU running back, as an undrafted player. They got Jake Majors, the starting center for Texas. They got him as an undrafted player. So I think overall, I mean, they added some nice pieces on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, Elijah Roberts, David Walker, Benjamin Morrison, the corner from Notre Dame, Jacob Parrish, the corner from K-State. You got 2 really, really good corners. And then you get David Walker and Elijah Roberts, 2 really good defensive linemen. And then you also got Desmond Watson, the 465-pound Florida defensive end, who's like their defensive tackle, who's like a tush-push answer. I thought Jason Licht hit it right all weekend. I mean, getting 2 really good corners and 2 good pass rushers makes your defense better, and then adding 2 good polished receivers and a center and a running back on offense. I think Tampa's a big winner.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a B. The only dock there is that you only got 6 dudes. You only drafted 6 dudes. Other than that, I think you're right. This hits the bookend of the receivers, considering the age of Mike Evans and what happened with Godwin with the injury. This felt like the right move. And only one other thing to say about the Niners that we didn't. I just wanted to say, I think it was 4 straight defensive picks for the Niners. The fact that York said Saleh is clearly back. I just wanted to say that also about the Niners. Like the Saleh thing and the impact there that had gives even more oomph to what the Niners did. I just, that really needs to be said.
I thought the Niners' best pick was C.J. West. I think he's just such a beast inside. I think he's such a lock to be good. Washington. Let's jump to Washington. They got Jaden Daniels, blindside protector here in Josh Connerly Jr., who's from Rainier Beach, Washington, up in the Seattle area. He was a 5-star in high school. He was good for Oregon. I thought he was one of the best left tackles. They get him in the first round to protect Jaden Daniels' blindside for the foreseeable future. They also got a speedy receiver in Jalen Lane out of Tech, and they got a good running back, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, out of Arizona. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they added the UCLA linebacker Kane Madrano. And then I thought they added, this is where I think the Commanders really kicked ass. They got 3 guys in their secondary. Trey Amos in the second round. Carlin Vigors is an undrafted player who's really good. And then they signed Robert McDaniel from Jackson State, who led the nation this year in personal foul penalties. This guy is absolutely a monster hitter. He is a force. So to get Carlin Vigors, Trey Amos, and Robert McDaniel for the secondary, that's really nice. And to get your blindside pass protector, I think this draft is going to be looked at very favorably for Washington and Adam Peters.
Initially, I had this as a D. I'm going to upgrade it to a C, and here's why. I just threw so many flowers at Deebo Samuel. We got to just throw that into it. You only got 5 picks, but the Deebo addition is going to make a difference here. And from a draft standpoint, you helped protect Jaden, as you already mentioned. I think Amos is going to be great with Lattimore also. To pair that together and protecting Jaden being the priority there. We can move on. I originally hated this. I'm liking it a little bit more today, a little bit.
To me, the big winner was the best GM going right now. I think it's Eric DeCosta of the Ravens. This guy really knows what he's doing. He gets good talent and value everywhere. LeJonte Wester at receivers, a good ad. They got Carson Vincent and Garrett Dellinger and Emory Jones for their offensive line. To me, that's the 2 LSU guys and the Florida A&M guy. I think all 3 of those guys wound up making the team. So they really upgraded their offensive line, and they added a nice little receiver. But then defensively, you got Aeneas Peebles in the 6th round, Teddy Buchanan in the 4th round, Mike Green in the 2nd round, Malachi Starks late in the 1st round, Bilal Kone as well. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. I also saw someone said they got Chandler Martin as an undrafted guy. I don't see him listed here, but he is one of my favorite undrafted guys. So I just think the Ravens, Malachi Starks is a great player. Mike Green is a great player. They got both. They play the board as it comes to them. To get Peebles in the 6th was a total steal. Eric DeCosta is fantastic.
Yeah, this is one of the A's. I didn't give out many A's. This is an A clearly. And it's funny how when you see a guy drafted and then you associate where he went, you just think, God, that made so much sense. And the Ravens just get credit for doing it on defense again and again and again. And you said it. Malachi and Mike Green, to see those 2. And I'd already mentioned with the Niners in regards to what Mike Green can be. I think that's going to be a special player. They got him, and it feels like great value in this moment. And again, 11 players coming off of where they were last season. And DeAndre Hopkins could be something nice there. Could be a little something for Lamar. We'll see. So yeah, that's an A in Baltimore.
I thought Buffalo got some good players, but they helped their defensive line, but not much else. They got Maxwell Harrison in the 1st round, good corner, and they added T.J. Sanders, Landon Jackson, and Deion Walker to their defensive front, so they get bigger up front. They also had a Dorian Strong, so they did add a couple corners and some defensive linemen up front. So I think they helped their defense. Offensively, they got very little. Jackson Hawes. Chase Lunt, don't love, Lunt's a decent pass protector. Hawes is a blocker. I think they helped themselves a little bit, but to me, it's more of a mid-range kind of a draft.
And I loved it. I thought this was an A, and here's why. What's the number one thing the Bills have to do, Larry? The number one thing, what the Bills sleep with every single night is...
You got to beat Kansas City.
How can we not beat the Chiefs? And we can do it in the regular season, and we can't do it in the playoffs. We've got the MVP on offense. This is how the draft went. You've got 9 picks, and here's what you did with the first 5. Defense, 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 defense. You want to stop Mahomes, you go out, cornerback, defensive line, edge, defensive line. I'm sorry, just from a positional standpoint alone, the Bills were already, they're a team that's close. This feels like we have one mission in mind, and they went and addressed it, period.
Yeah, my only thing is that I just think that they went for bigger rushers, and I think that if they really want to get it done, they're going to have to go with some smaller guys. I mean, Rousseau's already a big guy. They have Joey Bosa. He's already a big guy. Espinesa's a big guy. Landon Jackson's 275. I mean, they've got, they don't have that. I think they could probably use a smaller, quicker rusher to try to get home on Mahomes. So I'm not a huge fan. Let's jump to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, is always an interesting team. They went Dylan Fairchild and Jalen Rivers on their offensive line. I'm looking at what else they did. Seth McLaughlin from Ohio State on the offensive line as well. So they got 3 players on the offensive line. They got Peyton Thorne as an undrafted free agent quarterback. They did get Taj Brooks in the 6th round. That should help them quite a bit at running back. Cole Taylor's not a bad tight end. They got him after the draft undrafted. Eric Gregory and Howard Cross are good undrafted D linemen. They drafted Shamar Stewart. They added Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight at linebacker, so I definitely like that. I like the linebacker ads of Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight. I'll give the Bengals a solid B. They gambled on Shamar Stewart. They got some pretty good defensive linemen after the draft. I think overall, they actually did a nice job. The Bengals did at bolstering their D-line and O-line. I mean, Jalen Rivers, Dylan Fairchild, and Seth McLaughlin on the O-line. Shamar Stewart, Howard Cross, Eric Gregory on the D-line. Yeah, I can, and then Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight. I'll give Cincinnati a solid B+. I mean, I don't want to give grades, but I like what they did. They got some things done.
As the totality of the offseason, I'm giving this a D, and here's why. So they only got 6 picks, and let's think about what the signings have been. And I was given a lot of credit to what happened in the signings to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and the tight end as well there. But Trey Hendrickson, this is a team that had the number 1 passer in Burrow and the number 1 receiver in Jamar Chase, and clearly needed the help on defense. There needed to be more players here. Yes, I love Shamar, but if you don't sign Hendrickson, this just doesn't make sense. I feel like he only needed to really pay. It was really about paying Chase, and instead it became, because of what Burrow said, about also paying Higgins and also paying Gesicki. And I just don't necessarily think that was the answer. And Mixon looked great. I don't know that running back. I mean, Mixon looked great in Houston. So obviously you're still kind of chasing that, in Cincinnati. So that's probably why you went running back where you did. But I just felt like you wanted more there. And again, considering how great you were on offense, you needed more answers on defense.
I'm giving Andrew Berry a low grade. I don't like what the Browns did. I mean, you could have had Travis Hunter. He's the best receiver and the best corner in the draft. And instead you trade out of that spot. I know they got, some nice draft capital from Jacksonville, including a number 1 next year. But to me, you had Travis Hunter right there and you got away from him. So you added 3 good players on defense: Mason Graham, Carson Schlesinger, and Aiden Huntington from Tulane. I like those 3 additions. They did get a bunch of backs. I mean, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson. Those are 2 really good running backs. But to me, I mean, Dylan Gabriel, what's that? And you took him in the 3rd round. I mean, he's not an NFL starting quarterback. Shedeur Sanders, what's that? And, in the 5th round, I mean, I don't get that. I don't like either of those picks. I think Harold Fannin Jr. is a college player who I don't think is going to be nearly as good in the pros. So I like the 2 running backs for sure. Like the 2 running backs. They got 2 really good running backs, and they got 3 pretty good defensive players. But trading away Travis Hunter, I didn't like it.
Yeah, this feels incomplete. Yeah, I'm going to give it a C because it just feels so in the middle. You're right. Nick Chubb had to be addressed. The running backs make sense there, but I'm so with you. Forget about the Shedeur Sanders part of it. It's the Travis Hunter piece. It's the having Travis Hunter. He's essentially your player, and now you don't have him. I just don't know. That doesn't feel like addition by subtraction in the moment. And this will all come down to whether Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders ever amount to anything. So it's just so incomplete right now for Cleveland that I'm waiting. I want Gabriel or Shedeur to be awesome, and that would say that this was the right move, but it just feels incomplete. It just does.
Let's move to Denver. I thought Denver is one of the best drafting teams this year. I mean, Jedi Barron, and you've got Jedi Barron and Surtain. You got to be kidding me. Those are great corners. That was a great draft pick right there. And then they also wound up, taking Savion Jones, who I think is the best interior rusher. They got Q Robinson, who's a great edge rusher from Alabama. They took Johnny Walker Jr. from Mizzou, who's a tremendous edge rusher. Love that one. So you got 2 good edge rushers, maybe 3 in Savion Jones, and you got a tremendous corner in Jedi Barron. And then offensively, I don't like the Pat Bryant pick, but RJ Harvey is tremendous. That was a great addition. Joaquin Davis is not a bad undrafted guy either. Marcus Cox and Clay Webb are not bad on undrafted offensive linemen. Thought they got a couple good offensive linemen there. Overall, I mean, RJ Harvey, I think, is awesome. And Jedi Barron's awesome. And Savion Jones is awesome. So, I really like what they did. I think Denver is coming. Now, Greenlaw getting hurt with the quad, we'll see. But, I mean, look at this defense. Jedi Barron and Surtain outside. You got Riley Moss, Hufanga at safety now. You've got Benito, Singleton, and Greenlaw on the second level. DJ Jones up front with Zach Allen, and you just added some extra rushers. I kind of like Denver, man. I think Denver's getting better and better. They already have a good defense. They just got a better defense.
Yeah, this is a B. I think it comes down to the guy that you questioned. I think if Pat Bryant turns into somebody that Bo Nix can get the ball to, it's sort of an A to look back at it. Harvey makes sense. That's an area of need. And the fact this feels like no fly zone. With Barron paired up with the defensive player of the year in Surtain, this just feels like hearkening back to a time when Denver was dominant in that area, in that era, and this could happen again. So I do love it for that.
Houston's interesting. They got Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins and Arianti Ursary for their offensive line and Woody Marks, but they traded a high pick next year to get Woody Marks in the 4th round. That was a reach. I don't know why Cesario was so Woody Marks crazy there, because that was a bad decision. But they got Jalen Knoll and Ursary and Jaden Higgins. I think that's pretty damn good for their offense. As far as the defense goes, I didn't love their picks on defense, but they did sign Casey Osai, who's a linebacker from Louisiana after the draft, and I liked him. So I would give them kind of I liked a couple of their picks a lot. Like I love Ursary and I love Knoll, but overall I would give them kind of a mediocre grade.
That's okay. I upgraded it to a B. We trust in DeMeco Ryans when it comes to defense, so I'm going to say that's going to work out defensively and what they did. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt there, and I do like some of what they did, and I like Jalen Smith. I think that of the USC picks, of course, that's the better one here. We all know what we think about Marks. Taking both quarterbacks both wide receivers from Iowa State, I love that. Considering what happened last season, the injuries at wide receiver for what CJ Stroud can be and what we saw in his rookie season, and then to have the injury to Tank Dell, Nico Collins on and off the field, you needed to address that. And the teammates, do teammates often work out? No, not necessarily that both guys will hit, but for right now, I like that. The receivers from Iowa State for the Texans, that's a B. I saw it as a B.
What about Indy? Indy got Tyler Warren in the 1st round. I like Riley Leonard in the 6th round. I love DJ Giddens from K-State in the 5th round. I thought that was an unbelievable steal. So they got a great steal on Giddens, and they got a really safe 1st round pick in Warren. Defensively, they took the Buckeye guy Tuamolo. Not a huge fan. I didn't love their defensive picks really at all. I liked DJ Giddens and Tyler Warren, but I didn't love their draft.
I gave this an A, and here's why, though, Larry. You're gonna have to come back and check me on this one. This comes down simply to one thing: is JTT ever going to be the player he was when he left high school, right? I mean, we're talking about the number 1 prospect in the world at the time when he made his commitment. JTT was supposed to be a monster, and it hasn't quite happened yet, but you can see Indy banking on the idea. Maybe we can get that out of this guy. And that's what it'll come down to. Also, because of what we said earlier about Loveland, maybe Indy got the best tight end in Warren. And I'm just waiting for Anthony Richardson to be the guy that we think he can be. We're waiting. And so therefore, maybe Riley Leonard is a great late draft pick that can push Anthony Richardson to become the guy that he needs to be. This team's not going. None of us think Daniel Jones is that answer. So it's going to have to be that they surrounded Anthony Richardson with enough. I like it right now. It feels like an A.
James Gladstone, the hyper 20-year-old whatever GM of the Jaguars, is just so nauseating listening to him talk. But getting Seth Hennigan as an undrafted player, I think was a steal. I mean, that was an amazing get. Bashal Tutin's a fast running back. They got Travis Hunter, who's a 2-way player. Kaiser's a good linebacker. Caleb Ransaw's a good corner from Tulane. Jabbar Muhammad's a good undrafted corner from Oregon. They got a couple pieces along the way here. BJ Green and Danny Strigow. Green played at Colorado, Strigow at Minnesota. Pretty good edge rushers. There's something about this Gladstone guy trading next year's number one. I don't know. There's something tells me I think he made a couple good picks here, but that guy's nervous. He makes me nervous.
But okay, do you like him better than Balky? I mean,
yes,
right?
I do. I do.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to. Larry, this is an A for what we already spoke about. If we're upset with the Browns not having Travis Hunter, and now the Jaguars went aggressively at the beginning of we're talking about a draft. How under wraps was that trade? Nobody saw that coming. And then right before the draft, Glazer's with it and everyone's talking about it. And they pull it off to get Travis Hunter, who essentially is like getting two players in one if he can keep it up. Of course, time will tell on that. So much of what we're talking about will be that. But I love that. I'm just going to say that just you kind of stole the A in your first pick. You didn't have Travis Hunter and you didn't have a path to Travis Hunter. And now he's yours. And if Trevor Lawrence can make any kind of a rebound from what was a very forgettable 2024 campaign, this team is looking like they're headed in the right direction. Yes, potentially the GM's more annoying than the last one, but I'm not positive of that in the Bay Area. I don't know how they would feel about that statement. But Travis Hunter almost alone says that. And potentially at running back, you're going to find that answer that wasn't ATN. Maybe you did in this draft.
I love what Brett Veach did in Kansas City. I think he had the best draft of almost anybody. Look at this draft. I mean, they go with Josh Simmons, who could have gone top 5. They get him at 32. Then they get Omar Norman Lott in the second round. I think he's a tremendous defensive tackle. They get Ashton Gelati from Louisville, tremendous edge rusher in the third round. They come back with Noel Williams, who's just an awesome physical corner in the third round from Cal. They get Jalen Royals, a fourth-round receiver from Utah State. I loved him. Jeffrey Bassa is a fast linebacker in the fifth round. Brashard Smith is a receiver running back combo from SMU in the seventh round. After the draft, they got Elijah Badger from Florida, who's a really good receiver. They got Jake Briningstool from Clemson, who's a really good tight end prospect. So they got a lot. And then Kozai Izzard, the Penn State defensive tackle, as another guy they got on defense. So after the draft, I thought Brett Veach kicked ass. Brett Veach is a tremendous personnel guy.
I'm going to give this a B instead of an A for one reason. They did address tight end after the draft, but I thought they should have addressed it within the draft. I thought they had a chance to go tight end in this draft. I just think Kelsey, at this point, we all know Kelsey's not quite what he was, and you just have to start thinking about that earlier than you really expect to. And that felt like something you could have done there. The Simmons thing we love, considering what we saw in the Super Bowl on the offensive line from that team, and of course losing Tooney as well. The Simmons thing makes a lot of sense. Andy and Veach are so obsessed with offensive linemen. I thought maybe they were going to get another. I thought maybe there was going to be another offensive lineman there as well to go with this haul. But Simmons we love.
I loved what the Raiders did. The Raiders have a brand new GM, and the Raiders know what they're doing now. Jack Betch in the second round from TCU is a great receiver. Dante Thornton is a 4.30 receiver. This Tommy Mellott from Montana State is a 4.37 quarterback. He's not a real quarterback. He's more of a slot receiver. But they list him as a receiver here. Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, two really athletic offensive linemen. Zachary Franklin from Illinois is a real sleeper receiver. Love that get. Carter Runyon, the tight end, is a good sleeper tight end from Towson. Cam Miller is a decent quarterback prospect as a backup. Ashton Genty is a star running back. And then on defense, they had a J.J. Pegues, defensive tackle, Tonka Hemingway, one-gap penetrator, Cody Lindenberg, very productive linebacker, Darian Porter, just a Mongo corner with 4.3 speed. They also got Jalen Walker from Indiana, very underrated linebacker, Jaw Joyner, a pass rusher from Minnesota, very underrated, Mello Dotson, corner from Kansas with huge size. I think the Raiders had a tremendous draft. The Raiders are coming. The Raiders are coming.
Absolutely. This is an A. And outside of New England, this is the team that overhauled what they were from 1 year ago to right now. And I tweeted this out on Thursday. Ashton Genty could be the number 6 pick in fantasy drafts coming up. I mean, Genti could be that special, and he's there, and it sort of was the obvious move. But guess what? Many years the Raiders haven't made the obvious move. They made the obvious move. They got the right guy. Genti's going to make an impact on this league, and probably more immediately than any other player we're talking about in this draft. It could be Genti that we're talking about most from this. He could be that generational player here. So I just love going with what came to you. And that's it. Quarterback flyer, sure, but I just love and Pete always collects picks. They got 11 draft picks, but considering what they did there, I love that. And the late flyer on one and a half quarterbacks there in Malott and Cam Miller, maybe with Gino, but love with you. I'm so with you. An A for the Raiders.
Chargers are coming, man. The Chargers had a great draft. Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith. They added 2 really good receivers who have size, and you're talking about 2 guys. Ladd McConkey now has some tag team partners. I mean, he's got some guys. They added a gigantic tackle in Branson Taylor. They added a Rondé Gadsden, who's a tight end, a flexed out tight end, who's really, really a sleeper tight end. And then running back. I mean, look at this team. Now Justin Herbert has a 3-headed monster of Omarion Hampton, Najee Harris. They also have Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins, but they drafted signed Raheem Sanders from South Carolina, who's a great undrafted back. So they've got themselves a can full of backs. They added some receiving weapons. They're way more diverse and dynamic offensively. And then defensively, Jamari Caldwell, Kyle Kennard, 2 really good players there. And then on the back end, you get Ray Mickens, who's a decent safety prospect. So, I mean, Triquise Bridges was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. We'll see if they can find him and solve him. But I loved what they did offensively. I mean, adding the receivers, adding the tight end, adding the 2 different running backs, 3 if you want to include the free agent Najee Harris. I think the Chargers, they added Mekhi Becton. They're clearly going to run the ball. The Chargers are coming, man. The Chargers are coming.
Absolutely. And I know we got to race through the end of this, Larry, but I'll just say I'm with you. It's a B for the Chargers. First of all, Triquez might be as that second, not quite Mr. Irrelevant, but right next to it. That could be something. That could be a late steal. And you mentioned Mekhi Becton. You got to say that when you look at their draft, include that as well. And people love the Hampton thing really could work for Harbaugh. It really could. I know there's questions there, but that could work for the Chargers. I think it's a B. You're right.
Dolphins, the Dolphins got Quinn Ewers, and the Dolphins got the big Arizona offensive guard. They added Andrew Armstrong as a receiver after the draft. They got Jalen Conyers after the draft as a tight end. That's a good one. And then on defense, they got Jordan Phillips, Kenneth Grant, Zeke Biggers. They got really huge up front. And they also added Eugene Asante as an undrafted guy who's terrific. I got to give the Dolphins some love here. Eugene Asante and those 3 big defensive linemen, and then Ewers and an offensive lineman and Armstrong, Conyers. I like what they did. Not with a lot of picks, but they got some good value.
Yeah, again, not a ton of picks. I gave this a C because this is contingent on Quinn Ewers being something. I think Tua, it has to be addressed. Tua had to be addressed. Quarterback has to be something you're looking at. I don't think, Zach Wilson isn't necessarily that answer, hasn't been to this point. Is Ewers going to become the guy? He's shown flashes, but then again, couldn't even really keep Arch off the field necessarily. Manning. That's what it comes down to. Ollie Gordon could step into what Mostert was, so that's nice. And of course, 27th in sacks last season, so the first pick in Kenneth Grant makes sense. But I still think it comes down to quarterback to me. I wanted quarterback to be addressed.
I like what New England did. On defense, they got Josh Farmer. They got Craig Woodson, the safety from Cal. Braden Swinson, the edge rusher from LSU. They did a lot on that side of the ball in free agency. But then offensively, Travion Henderson, Will Campbell, Kyle Williams, Jared Wilson, Ben Woolridge as a backup quarterback, a couple late tight ends, and C.J. Dupre and G. Scott. I liked what New England did. I think New England got off the canvas and had a nice draft.
This is an A all the way. Take the draft picks along with what else has happened. You're talking about Stephon Diggs, Milton Williams, and Mike Vrabel. Coaching-wise, Vrabel right there as well. Run game, massive infusion with those first 2 picks. Will Campbell on the line and Travion Henderson. But this team has absolutely revamped what they were. New England looks the most different today than they did on Wednesday.
The Jets got their butt kicked. I mean, they took Armand Membu. They got Mason Taylor, Jason Taylor's kid, in round 2. But Arian Smith in the 4th round, he's a receiver who can't receive. Jamal Pritchett wasn't bad as an undrafted guy. They got Brady Cook and Donovan Edwards as undrafted guys. Not bad, but I thought the Jets picks were bad. Tyler Barron, Malachi Moore's not bad. Don't love what they did, man. Jordan Clark after the draft. To me, the Jets got very little for sure out of this.
All I like is Malachi Moore. This is a C and could be a D. And what the hell are the Jets doing at quarterback? Larry, what? This is just Justin Fields. It's just Justin Fields' team. This is the team that couldn't win with Aaron Rodgers.
Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. They have Jordan Travis, Adrian Martinez, and Brady Cook now.
And you didn't want to take a flyer on anything in this? I just don't understand what the Jets are doing at quarterback. So I'm sorry. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It does not make sense at all. At all.
Steelers. What do you think? Steelers got Caleb Johnson, Will Howard, Rock Taylor after the draft is not bad as a receiver from Memphis. Defensively, they got Derek Harmon, Yaya Black, Jack Sawyer. I thought Carson Bruner might have been one of their best picks. They also got Sebastian Castro after the draft. I don't love what the Steelers did. I mean, the Steelers find a way to make their drafts work, but I'm not a huge fan of Derek Harmon. Jack Sawyer, I think, is kind of stiff. Yaya Black's slow. Will Howard, I don't like him. Caleb Johnson, not my favorite runner. I thought the Steelers were just kind of mediocre.
None of us ever know what's going on at quarterback. It's just clear. Every one of us that says we think we know what's going on, we're surprised every single season. Brock Purdy's about to make millions, and nobody ever saw that coming. But this comes down to Will Howard. It just does. This is a C. And Will Howard is either somebody who won a championship at Ohio State, or he's going to do it at the next level. Right now, doesn't look like that. But if he's not better than Shedeur, Shuck, Milroe, and Dart, this wasn't the answer. And I know Rodgers may play quarterback for this team this season, but don't love it. And I'm going to say this much. You're right about the Steelers getting it right. Jack Sawyer could be, if they believe in Jack Sawyer, that could be the pick, but I saw this as a C.
You know, and then we'll finish with Jacksonville or with Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, gets a good grade because they got Cam Ward. And they found some players on offense. I mean, Gunnar Helm, Kalel Mullings, Jackson Slater, Alec Ayomanor, Xavier Restrepo. There's some decent players there. I don't see anybody great though. There's not a lot of talents and speed. Ayomanor is big and fast, but I don't love him. They got David Benda as an undrafted guy. He's not bad. Olufemi Oladejo, I liked him. I thought their draft, especially when they had the first pick, underwhelming draft for Tennessee.
Absolutely. I give it a B. Again, Cam Ward's going to raise that grade considerably, and it's all on what we think might be for Cam Ward. And frankly, it doesn't matter what grade we give this. If Cam Ward's not the guy coming off of Will Levis, this looks brutal. That's it.
That's going to do it for us. MSQ says $1.99. The next Mailata is Georgia offensive tackle Jaw Jackson. Yes. There you go. We got this one from Jason Lutz. He says, if you could redraft one pick, who would you swap? I would probably take out Curtis Rourke and put in another linebacker. And Joseph Ernberg, where would you rank the Niners in the NFC West right now? I think the 49ers are still right there with all those teams in the NFC West. I think you get a healthy Brock Purdy and with all that the Niners have. I like the NFC West right now. I think the Niners are slightly better than the Rams and Seattle, and maybe a little bit better than Arizona. I don't feel cocky, but I think that they're as good as anybody in the division.
Yeah, I had Niners at second in the division right now, and Vegas sees them as better than that. Yeah, that's where I got Niners.
Sammy, great stuff, man. We'll do it again.
Absolutely, Larry. Love this. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to everybody. I'm going to join the Gregs in 5 minutes on KMBR. Join me then. Peace. Yeah, never met a man I've been